Okay, cool.
All right. Welcome to Death of the Roguelike episode 4.
Yeah, officially episode 4. I did on Saturday. I was bored and decided to stream like 15 minutes of myself playing Teleglitch, uh,
Nice.
which that's just because I wanted to see some of the
Yeah,
changes that had been
we are
made.
live.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Oh,
Welcome to Death of the Roguelike
I'm getting
episode
some.
4.
Oh, there we go. That's why I didn't have the thing fully muted. Great. Uh, yeah, they did some updates to Teleglitch not too long ago, and it changed sort of the way that the first few levels played out, which is about as far as I ever got into that game. Um, it doesn't mean that I didn't bounce off the surface of those first few levels several times. But they've smoothed that experience a great deal. It's a little bit easier to kind of get further in. There's a lot more emphasis on collecting resources and less likelihood that you're just going to get straight murdered on the first level.
I'm a fan of not getting straight murdered.
Yeah, sometimes. I understand some people really love their roguelikes to be just completely uncompromising. Dungeons of Dreadmore is kind of like that a little bit.
I don't know. I always found Dreadmore really forgiving.
Really?
Actually, yeah.
Huh.
If I make it past the first few levels, then it's pretty smooth sailing from the.
Mhm.
Actually, yeah. I never really died level three above level 3 unless I was being really, really careless.
Hmm. It's been a while since I've played that.
A lot depends. A lot of it depends on what skills you pick out too, though.
Yeah, I had a huge penchant for picking really crazy builds, just because all of the class descriptions just sound so interesting and compelling. It's like I want to play a vampire archaeologist. That sounds fun. In some cases, it's actually if you pick the archaeologist, you're generally pretty good. There's some pretty
Yeah,
powerful abilities in there if you max out one of the
yeah.
threes.
Especially, yeah. You just gun straight for the one that lets you turn in legendary artifacts for experience.
Yeah. Or
Um,
lets you reuse anvils. I think that's I don't know. It's been a long while. I'm getting my facts wrong.
yeah.
Uh,
At any rate, speaking of lots of classes, this is the Nethack episode.
yeah. Well, yeah. So I guess one of the things is my intent with this series was to kind of go for breadth, but understanding that roguelikes are typically very complicated things. It's not reasonable to just do okay. Well, we did like that was the Risk of Rain episode. Like let's keep going. I probably want to go back to Risk of Rain at some
Oh
point.
yeah, definitely. We could do really if we wanted to. We could do the entire series on NetHack and
Yeah,
have a
absolutely.
few years worth of material.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Dwarf Fortress or anything when you start getting into really obtuse, kind of crazy, complicated mechanics.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do a Dwarf Fortress Adventure mode episode eventually, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I would love to do actually one where we get like, I build enough of a dwarf fortress that's kind of workable. It's been a while since I've gone back to it, when I
Yeah,
was able to get, okay, this thing is basically running, and then that takes about 20 hours.
yeah. I've never touched it because I know what will happen to me if I do.
It's
See, I will never see the sun again.
yeah, it's so beautiful. It's once you understand some of the systems, it's just like I could just live in here. It's kind of the reason why when everybody was getting really up in arms about Dungeon Keeper, the mobile version being
Oh,
terrible. I was like, well, you
um,
know what, Dungeon Keeper 1 and Dungeon Keeper 2 are still on GOG. They still kind of run all right. Those are still fun games to play.
mhm.
And if I really want to just completely break my head, there's Dwarf Fortress, which is pretty much Dungeon Keeper with
Right.
way more complicated. Like you just, I don't know. If you've ever
And
read
then
Boat Murdered,
yeah,
it's
and
even
then
worse.
there's Evil Genius too, which I think is like kind of a more forgiving,
Yeah,
somewhat more forgiving take on that.
yeah. So, anyways, yeah, this is NetHack, and this is kind of I've referred to it a lot. I imagine pretty much anybody who, when they talk about sort of traditional roguelike design, this is the game that they're probably talking about. This or Ancient Domains of Mystery, which there should be a sequel to that coming out soon because I gave money to an Indiegogo and I've been getting emails about like we have a new build. It's like great, I can't get past the first town, but I'm really stoked that you guys keep doing this and adding more to this game that I will never ever possibly see. But yeah, that's another game I'll probably wind up getting around to. But typically, yeah, when you talk about feature creep and super complicated roguelikes, this is
Yeah,
NetHack is kind of the be all and end all. It's the kind of game
yeah,
where I want to go back to. at one point, but
To a certain extent, NetHack is more roguelike than Rogue.
yeah, it's actually for me it's the weird breaking point where roguelike doesn't mean anything. Maybe NetHack like makes more sense because
Right.
Rogue itself is not as procedurally generated as you would think, and actually, like Rogue's level design probably has a little bit more in common with the level design for Risk of Rain, where the levels don't necessarily change that much. It's mostly the positioning of the items and the quality of the items and the monsters that give the game its real randomness. Because Rogue was it was just a series of 9 rooms, which technically NetHack kind of has that a bit too. If I recall correctly, there's a part of the dungeon it's designed to look a lot like Rogue, and that's actually the part of the dungeon I've never gotten past.
It's real frustrating. Another thing is the bottom of the mines is always one of 3 levels. One of 3 levels. Sokoban's always a mix of like 8. Like there's 8 total things in Sokoban that you could possibly have. Like you either do 1A or 1B, and then 2A or 2B, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so if from our conversations, I've generally inferred that you've probably gotten farther in NetHack than I have.
The other day, I think the other day I made it farther than I ever had before, except maybe the one time I made it to the rogue level. But I made it to level 10 of the mazes after managing to get to the bottom of the mines.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have to kill the Minotaur in the maze?
No.
Okay.
No, thank God. No, I just got brutally slaughtered by, I don't even remember what now. I have to get on my laptop.
So I guess one of the interesting things for me is my mouse is not showing up, which is fine. I can't gesture at it. One of the interesting things for me is right now we're connected to a telnet server, nethack.alt.org. If you have any kind of telnet client, you can just basically telnet to that. You don't need to know any other ports or anything like that. And basically, you set up an account, and you can pretty much play Rogue. You can pretty much play NetHack kind of wherever. Like you don't have to worry about downloading any files. I'm surprised that there aren't mobile hooks connected to, like there isn't a, there are a lot of mobile versions of NetHack, but I don't think any of them spider into like being a front end for this, which would be kind of interesting because a lot of the design for the one that I use on my phone, I really like. I like that it has all the commands along the bottom, so you don't necessarily have to like.
Talking about the one for Android that's just called NetHack.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be real interesting to actually go in there. I think that one's the source code's released, so you could probably go in and add the telnet capabilities. But
that's true.
But I think there's some differences in mods.
Yeah.
That get applied to the telnet client.
Yeah, and I think there are ways I've heard that there are ways to like add some of the Falcon's Eye stuff. Or maybe not necessarily that, but like there are ways to tweak your telnet client. Right now, I'm just running out of PuTTY.
Yeah, same here.
Because I use BitConnects for work, so it literally just has PuTTY sitting inside the directory. It's like, oh, that's great. I didn't even need to download this. So, anyways, what's interesting is that let's see, you have this option to watch games in progress, which apparently just crashed my
if you sit idle too long, it stops taking input. So probably gonna have to log out and log back in.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's see what XSplit's saying. All right. Yeah, so that's the perils of. Did I just go? Okay, I'm still streaming. Because it's just showing screen window.
Yeah.
There we go. So I'm back in. It's not quite showing up for some reason.
For Twitch lag.
Let's add screen region. Let's do this. All right.
We need a technical difficulties
Yeah. Yeah.
image we can
There's
throw
a
up.
thing to flash back up on the screen.
Yeah, just a tiled image of Barth or something.
All right.
Oh, that's tiny. There we go.
Yeah, I just tried to back up. It should be. There we go. All right. So, before further ado, so there's a bunch of games that are in progress. What I like is it's got, the username, just a, I guess, standard version of Nethack that they're using, the size of their game, which I guess you edit in the settings.
I think so. Or it might just be based on your window size.
Yeah. So you also have a sense of like how idle these people have been. Doesn't say their depth, I don't believe. Oh yeah, isn't that on the far right? I don't know.
Yeah. The far right is their depth. I'm not sure what the A means. Does that mean they're ascended?
Oh, maybe, or they have ascended in the past.
Oh, yeah, I bet that's it because Sternivar has only been playing for about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, that's the start time. I'm sorry. So I guess this is in UTC. So
I don't know. Why don't we see what Pong is doing?
All right.
Unless there's any other recommendations.
No.
All right.
That's much.
So the upside to this is that neither of us really have to do anything. Although it's
Or
not,
be good at NetHack.
Yeah. It's not coming up for me for some reason.
Yeah, my screen's blank. Here we go. He just quit.
Oh, that's great. All right. Let's try.
Let's see what Kaijin or Kijin.
Which
G.
G?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Perfect. So.
If you install. Sorry.
So you can send messages to people just by tapping M. So I just sent them a stamped message that just says hello, which is like, it's a really dumb bit of functionality because you can only send them about 80 characters, but it's kind of funny to like sometimes people will respond and they're just straight typing into their their cursor, and so when they hit enter it just says what. But it looks like they're not really responding at all. Like they just got the I have some mail for you, and now they're sitting there.
Yeah, this is weirdly voyeuristic.
Yeah, it's really strange that this exists. On the one hand, that there are active servers of people playing Telnet, and that you can spectate those games. Like I was not even vaguely aware that this was functionality that existed. And what's more is it for me, like, part of why I started doing this was thinking about all of the streams that have come out around Spelunky and kind of the phenomenon of streaming and sort of how players are, like, what does it mean to be playing and what does it mean to be streaming yourself playing games? It seems to be like a thing that's a trend that's on the rise.
Yeah.
And it's really funny to see that something like this has kind of already been doing it for, like, I imagine this functionality has probably been around for a while.
Yeah. Well, spectating games is nothing new either. It's a matter of actually having to go to the game server versus video functionality.
Sure.
And I don't think we can get out of this conversation without bringing up Twitch Plays Pokemon.
Yeah, actually, you'd mentioned that in some of the tweets leading up to this, and I was going to ask you about that because I watched it for a bit today, and it was just this fascinating car wreck. And in a lot of ways, it reminds me a bit of like some of the stuff that comes out of EVE Online, and I guess to a certain degree, Dwarf Fortress, where it's just like there are some monstrously crazy people out there that are just doing these very intense, very mechanically complex things. And it's this really beautiful thing to watch. it's just the kind of thing where it's like I don't know how to deal. I literally have no words to respond to this.
Well, even the mechanics of it are even just half of it. It's and the other half is the community that's opened up around it, and the memes and religion.
Yeah, all the paratexts in my one of my tweets leading up to this, I was referring to Mia Consalvo's book called Cheating, and basically in it she kind of talks a lot about the like what does it mean to for companies that sort of legislate. What does it mean to say that you cheat in a video game? And I mean, Nethack is a perfect example of that in terms of if there are some people within that community who believe that if you look up anything about the game, you've cheated.
Right.
That if you ascend somehow by looking at some kind of guide of how do I use a cockatrice, or should I put down a cockatrice if I'm confused, or should I try to wield a cockatrice, or what are the dangers of using this thing? Like any of those things. Oh wow, they just went into an ice vortex.
Yeah. Vortexes, by the way, are random monsters that you can run into, and they'll engulf you until you can beat yourself out of them.
That kind of makes me think of the portal monsters in Torchlight, where you would kill a monster and it would take you to a completely randomly generated short area of like really, really difficult monsters.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's like that, but the area you get teleported to is only 1 square large.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, Mia Consalvo is talking more in terms of like the rise of Nintendo Power and all that stuff. But she does talk about it in the context of gaming capital, and sort of the idea that sharing sort of a greater sense of knowledge of the game and like circulating that knowledge and presenting it to others. So writing a FAQ online, or in our case, streaming ourselves talking over this game, like that's accruing a sort of gaming capital that basically exists through these cultural artifacts that are produced outside of the game, but are dependent upon the game for sort of their context and meaning. So the idea of sort of the art kind of coming out of that Pokemon plays or Twitch plays Pokemon stream is a really strange way of looking at that stuff. I mean, Consalvo's scope within that book is very, very narrow. It was not necessarily narrow, but it's talking specifically about cheating. But it's interesting to see that expand and talk about, like, it kind of gives us a very interesting language to talk about all of these other things, like fandom and consulting the Helix fossil over and over and over again, which has become a trope with this stream. So if you're not familiar with the Twitch plays Pokemon, like anyone who's watching, I don't know how they've done it, but they've basically set it up so that people are watching, it's Pokemon Red.
Yeah.
And it's being streamed on Twitch. You can watch this, and then people can spam commands into the chat, and the commands are registered within the game itself. And there are 2 states. There's democracy and there's anarchy.
Yeah.
And those can be swayed by votes. Rather than typing in a command, you can just chat anarchy or democracy. And if you have 80% people voting for democracy,
I think it's 75% now, actually.
Oh, did they bump it down because no one was getting to democracy?
Well, they still aren't getting democracy, but they bumped it down.
And so you'd get, it would take a 20-second sampling of commands and then pick one, rather than anarchy, where just every single command is being thrown at the game at all times. And so what they found is that, like, through this random confluence, people kept checking the Helix fossil, or the SS ticket, or the lift key over and over and over again in like a battle.
Yeah, or Bulbasaur, the Pokedex in the overworld.
Yeah.
This is probably the most public example of memes rising from a spectated game like this, but Nethack is actually the Nethack IRC is probably one of the first instances of this, because there's memes such as whenever someone dies playing on Nethack Telnet, there's an IRC bot that sends a message to the chat room saying how that person died. And the most common death in all of NetHack is soldier ant. So because there's tons of them and they have strong attacks and they see them pretty early on. So lots of people will come in, they'll die to soldier ants. So it's customary whenever someone dies to a soldier ant to yell "Go Team Ant" into the chat room.
Go team. That's
Go Team Ant. Yeah. So the NetHack community, these same people who are claiming that, if you try to ascend by looking stuff up, you're cheating. Also, there's even more that goes on within this community. It's all very fascinating.
Yeah, it looks like they're saving right now. I don't know.
Yeah, that means they're about to log off.
They're about to log off. All right, let's.
Yeah.
So do you know specifically what part of the dungeon this is?
This is it's the. I believe it's just called the Dungeons of Doom.
Oh, it's still the first chunk of the area? Okay.
Yeah, it's just right now where they're saving here is the Oracle level. Okay. So you can see that room with a smaller square room inside it.
Yep.
So you can pay them for either a minor consultation or a major consultation, and that'll tell you something about the game. And I think if you do the major consultation, there's also some other bonus associated with that.
Okay, cool.
So the oracle's kind of seen as this kind of major checkpoint where you can keep going back to learn more things about the game and get various boons and healing and whatnot.
Okay, I guess that makes sense in the context of some of the old timers getting angry that you're consulting outside of that game if they have certain functionality, but the likelihood that you would wind up getting down there, just kind of, considering I've never ever been there and I've been playing the game off and on for 10 years.
Yeah, I got really intensely into it in high school, so
yeah,
kind of figured some of this stuff out.
Yeah, for me it was MUDs, and it was the best thing I could have done, because I ruined my life, like, not really ruined my life, but like high school ruined my life, so that by the time I'd actually graduated, I went out and was just like, when actual MMOs were coming out, I was just like, whatever, I can't like lop someone's arm off and like knock out all their teeth, and because obviously they didn't have the graphics engine, but they could be very, very particular with targeting body parts, and
yeah,
it was a PvP MUD, so I got a real fast and hard dose of internet trolling and like PvP stuff that I got that all on the chin in like the mid to late 90s, and was just like, okay, great, until MMOs can do stuff like that, which, the only time that kind of happened was EVE, and I don't have the time now to put into EVE.
Nobody really has the time to put into EVE. They just